Hello, all y'all. Welcome to the All Love podcast. This is us bringing you all the love. The topic for today's free share is Happiness Wagon Part 2. Yeah, everyone might pull their own happiness wagon, but how? I'm Jagadisha, an online personal real life guide. You can see more of me at mind.fully.applied at Instagram.
And I'm Rainey Martin. I'm a life coach based out of Montana, but I offer life coaching via Zoom everywhere in the nation. So, Happiness Wagon 2. Yep. It's all about whether we can control our emotions or not. Oh gosh. Anyway, so your feeling is that we can control, once we know how we're feeling, we
Yeah.
can change it, right?
Mm, mm. Basic premise. We can influence it. We can guide it. We can use it. We can place intentions with it. In noticing that it's coming from us. Because once we're aware, then we can have the capacity to be aware that it's coming from within. And this is I think where we left off last time, where you were just saying, you know, I don't buy it. It's not, is that really in us? Of like, I'm really born with happiness in me.
It's not so much that I feel like that's a misrepresentation of where I'm coming from. Like I think it's more that I think as humans, we emotions come up in us and
Yeah.
we don't feel like we can control those emotions or have a handle on changing those emotions, right? Like I think I
Mm,
shared something that one of my a coach that I admire a lot, Kaya Ramji says that emotions last 90 seconds, but the thoughts can last days, weeks, years, right? Um, but the thoughts perpetuate the emotions, right?
mm,
And but even and maybe it's just like on a subconscious level, but like when I'm feeling upset or nervous or anxious about something, I have a lot of tools, right? I have
mm,
meditation and qigong and a gratitude practice and an incredible social support network full of really amazing close friends that I feel really nourished by. I have a lot of things in my life that prop me up and help me be resilient and strong.
mm,
And still, when an emotion has a hold on me, it it doesn't last 90 seconds. It lasts however long it wants to last. A lot of times that's hours, sometimes it's days, sometimes it's weeks. And in fact, as you know, I have been going through a certain emotion for over a year now, right?
mm,
And it just keeps coming back, very uncomfortable, very overpowering. And
mm,
I try to utilize all my tools when it appears, and
mm,
really very few of them work, right?
mm. So what I'm hearing is that there's a repetitive sense to a certain emotion, that it comes up again and again.
That's just one example that I was giving, but in general, I think that I'm not alone in feeling that emotions control us far more than we control emotions.
Certainly, certainly. There are many people who will listen to this and relate.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly a very relatable point. And I myself can relate. It feels as if the emotion is lasting for a long time, especially in the context we've talked directly about in the context of depression, which we in our society today tend to think of as a diagnosis, was not originally a word, that it was an adjective, depressive thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
But that word, it could be an emotion. We can use any word to describe our emotions. We could call it the kitty cat emotion. We can call it whatever we want. But so let's just take that and say, I feel depression. I feel the reason I want to talk about this again today is because exactly what you said is true. Our thoughts are the vehicle. We were talking about the wagon last time. So if we can think of our thoughts as what's capable of carrying the emotion, and can I control my thoughts right now? Maybe I can't. I don't feel like I have any control over this emotion. I feel like it has stuffed me in a bag and shoved 10 pounds of manure on me, and I can't move. I might feel frozen. This is certainly the most common, what we call fight or flight response that I feel is frozen. And when that happens, I might not be able to fight or fly, run away, or do anything. But usually I can think. Can I use my thoughts to pull this around like a wagon? I put the depression in a wagon and use my thoughts with some intention. First step is I'm aware that I feel depressed, the feeling that I call depression. The second, can I pull it around in a wagon? Maybe. Am I willing to? Yes or no? Mm, maybe, maybe now, but maybe not 10 seconds from now. It
Mm-hmm.
kind of depends. And
Mm-hmm.
so this is kind of how my internal dialogue might go a lot if I'm paying attention. I'm not always paying attention to my internal dialogue. But if I'm not paying attention to the internal dialogue is when I tend to be able to look back and say, I'm stuck. But when I'm aware, the instant that I'm aware, I start to see there is movement. And so that's part of the reason I'm loving the metaphor of the happiness wagon, because this is a flow. And in the last one, I just kind of made the bold statement, happiness is a flow. It's not stationary.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to pull the wagon over to happiness and start shoveling it in.
But that's just what we want to do.
I do. I want to. Like, where can I buy the happiness, please?
Yes, yes,
But it's it's right here. It's coming from me. In fact, the desire for happiness can be described as depression or happiness.
because the desire, because it's a wanting.
Yeah, and I can celebrate that I want that because personally, I'm talking about me personally. I can celebrate that I want happiness because that means I recognize what happiness feels like and I'm already starting to remember.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't, I don't always get there. I probably can. In other words, I know I have the ability to because I've done it before. But I'd just probably say most of the time to half the time to most of the time, somewhere in the 50 to 60% range right now. It used to be 90%. So this I see as an improvement in my experience of life. 50 to 60% of the time when I have that emotion that I would call depression, um, it is, I want to say, navigable. I can navigate with
Mm-hmm.
it. I can play with it. I sometimes can even make a joke about it, which I found really effective. There's a saying maybe that fits in this conversation that I got from uh, I'll think of it in a minute, but it's the idea that laughter is illumination. Laughter is illumination.
Yeah, I think it feels like we've talked about this before. I think laughter, song, right? Dance.
Mm, mm. And so curiously, pulling my own happiness wagon can come up in this way. I can bring it to the light in this way. And maybe it's kind of like more like, well, the seeing it as the happiness wagon is a thing in and of itself. I don't need to load it up with anything. It's the fact of the existence of happiness and my willingness to celebrate that. That
Mm.
happiness is coming through me right now. I can choose to focus on it. The question then becomes, what are you actually willing to focus on right now? Not denying that depression exists, not denying that it's coming from within and I don't get that and I feel blindsided. Am I willing to focus on my capacity for happiness right now?
But
Sometimes the answer is no.
but the idea that you're proposing is that happiness always exists, and it's just up to us whether we turn our attention to it instead of having our attention on depression or anxiety or any other emotion. Is that right?
It's happening whether we turn our attention to it or not. And there are times when it turns our attention to it also.
I don't know if I agree with this. It's an
This is the
interesting
part that you don't.
concept. It's an interesting concept, but I'm just thinking of like when I feel depressed. I mean, I guess I'll have to
Mhm.
try it out. I'll have to try it out because it is a new concept. Can I? My husband actually, he has always had this thing, which I used to dismiss, that when he would get started him feeling upset about something or feel himself like spiraling, he would just tell himself to think of something happy. And he used to do that with me, right? Like I would
Mm,
share how I was feeling about something and he would tell me to just not think about it, think about something happy. And I felt
mm.
like he was dismissing how I felt and not listening to me
Uh,
and not allowing me to externally process, which is what I and many women need, right?
mm,
But I think for him now, from my a little bit more mature place, like I think that's his tool. That's his system of
mm,
moving himself into a healthy place. And
mm,
it's not unlike what you're suggesting. He's instead of focusing on and giving attention to something that is giving him cause for negativity, he shifts his focus. But my reaction was also valid. Like that's not healthy either to just think of something else, right? You're
mm.
suppressing. You're suppressing how you feel or ignoring or not giving yourself time to process, to feel, right? I mean, to a large
It's
extent,
also
like the only way to the other side of feeling of an emotion is to feel it, to experience it, to lean into it.
mhm. Which happens where?
What do you mean where?
Or how? So how do you lean into an emotion?
By letting
How
yourself
do,
feel it.
yeah. And who does that other than you?
Let's not do this Socratically. Why don't you just share what you're thinking?
No one does that other than you.
Right, right.
Right. So there can't be, I hear there's a tension formed when we try to externalize our emotions with people who aren't willing to have them externalized upon them, and who sometimes want us to feel something different because they want us to be happy. And sometimes they want to be our happiness. And this is really the basis for a lot of romantic relationships in my experience and in everything I've read and in everything I've heard from every other person who's ever talked about it. They want to have someone else around who helps them feel happy, and they want to be that influence on somebody else. There's authenticity there, right? Like, this is real. And we know it's real because it's so common, but mainly we know it's real because it's right here. And it doesn't matter if it's right here. I'm just pointing to a place that I believe will be a common reference point universally. All that matters is if I'm willing to look at it. So then am I willing to focus on this emotion of depression? Is part of what you're saying, right? Like, that's all that matters. Yes. And once I do, keep noticing. To stay with it and watch it is to know that it is changing. It's changing right now. To stay with it and watch it is to know that it is also coming from within me. It's coming through. And therefore, this body is the primary influence on it, because this body is the primary way that I experience the world. As a human, almost exclusively the only way. We always talk about the five senses. We don't talk much about the sixth sense. And so the happiness wagon concept, and another one, there's lots of other ones like it, are born. Maybe this morning we were in a group that talked about the meta prayer. You might call it like this extravagant process to extract happiness, and it's there all along. BS, BS. It's not there all along. If it was there all along, why would I have to go through this process of memorizing this prayer and saying it every day? Ugh. But at the same time, it's actually there for a reason. This was developed by other humans because it's so common.
Because there's a
And
need for it.
it's a reach, yeah, to reach for happiness. The Buddha didn't say, as the first observation about life, that there is happiness. The Buddha said, number one, there's suffering. And if we just kind of take that and splat it on this conversation, maybe if we're willing, sometimes we can see that it propels us forward to reach for the happiness. It encourages a willingness to focus on what could possibly be happy right now and right now and right now. And the more I do it, the more I do it, and the easier it becomes, and the more common it becomes, mostly.
You're saying that suffering makes us reach for happiness? Is that what you're saying? And the more often we reach for happiness, the easier it becomes.
The more often we reach for happiness, the easier happiness becomes to notice, to feel, to sense, to be happy.
I wonder if that's true. Is that true
I
in
don't
your
know.
experience?
Yes, it's true in my experience. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's true for your experience. So what you said earlier is absolutely true for us all, I believe. I think. I've got to try it out for myself.
I mean, it's a nice idea. It's like
Yeah.
habit. If you get into the happiness habit, right? I think that's already a book, right? The happiness habit. But reaching for happiness, no, no, no. It can't be reaching for happiness because then you're just manifesting reaching, not happiness. It has to be feeling happiness, experiencing happiness, celebrating happiness.
Mm, as
I,
if it comes from within,
mm-hmm.
as if recognizing I am this.
You know what would be great is if there were some studies done about this.
Hmm. What are you willing to do?
Notice.
Mm.
That was the first thing that came to my mind. I'll have to pay
Mm.
attention and see. Well, before notice, I'll practice, right? I'll see if next time I'm feeling uh not great, if I can find happiness within me in the moment and be in that space. And if I can I do that repeatedly? And if I can, does it become easier?
Mm.
It's worth a
I
try.
honor. Yeah, I feel so too. I am willing to do the same.
So
I
we'll be
find
the beta
myself willing to do
testers.
this. We will be. I volunteer for this experiment.
I think we should ask our audience, our listeners,
Yeah.
for people who are willing to be beta testers. So if you're willing to be a beta tester for this happiness experiment, the happiness habit experiment, just DM us or put a note on our YouTube channel. We'll start compiling a list of people who are beta testers, and we'll start checking in with you, and maybe we can create a scientific study that we can then publish.
Yeah. Smack it in the comments below.
Yeah, yeah.
How's that sound for scientific? Smack
I
it in the
mean,
comments below.
I don't know if I'd use the word smack, but lovingly place it in the comments below. That would be great.
Splat. How about we can negotiate splat?
Um, you,
No.
you could say splat. All right, I think we have come to an end. We may have gone 10 minutes past where we meant, or we might be right on time. I can't remember.
I think we're right on time. Thank you for allowing my splat. And I think Rainey will agree with these words. We're sending all love to all of you.
Amen. Amen.